First discuss on the show, we're talking about the Election Commission announcing dates for the assembly elections in the states of Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir. Both these states have 90 constituencies each. These will go to polls where Haryana is going to vote on one day. There is this one-phase voting in Haryana that is going to be on the 1st of October. Polling in Jammu and Kashmir, meanwhile, is spread across 3 phases. And these 3 phases kick off on the 18th of September. The counting of votes for both the states, for Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir, is going to be the 4th of October. Remember, Jammu and Kashmir is going to vote for the first time since the abrogation of Article 370 and the delimitation exercise in the Union Territory. Let's discuss what's happening in Jammu and Kashmir, what challenges could exist in conducting the assembly elections this time. And for that, from Delhi, we are joined by Mr. MM Ansari, the former Central Information Commissioner and the Interlocutor in Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Ansari, thank you very much for making the time and joining us on India Tonight. You know, in their judgment on the provisions of Article 370 in December last year, the Supreme Court passed directions on holding elections in Jammu and Kashmir by the date of 30th of September. Now, the Election Commission on its part has done its checks on the security arrangements and now announced the dates today. What do you see as the main considerations for the Election Commission in planning these election dates this time?
Well, the Supreme Court very clearly directed that the elections in Jammu and Kashmir should be held before 30th of September, and also the statehood should also be granted. Unfortunately, statehood has not been granted, but the elections now have been announced and it is going to be held, as you have already mentioned. Now, this is, of course, a great opportunity for people to exercise their voting rights. They have been expecting for so long, and it was very ironical that India is a vibrant democracy, and it took at least 10 years for the government to hold election in the state, though in 2009 and 24, national parliament elections were held, and in between a number of state elections were also held, but it was not done on one pretext or the other, including that of the delimitation exercise, which was to happen in 2026, but it was preponed in case of Jammu and Kashmir. So this election definitely provides a great opportunity for the people to elect their own leaders and form the government, and try to resolve the issues like unemployment, health sector, education, and so many other things that
yes,
they have. But at the same time, for the center, for the ruling dispensation, it is an opportunity to test its own strategy.
Yes.
Whether abrogation of 370 has worked, whether the delimitation allowing the Jammu region to have more 6 seats, and at the same time giving reservation to SC and ST, and also voting rights to the migrants. I mean, all these things have now been captured, and to make sure that the ruling dispensation has the
As far as assembly elections are concerned, these are opportunities. What are the challenges that you see in conducting elections there in the state this time? Walk us through how the challenges in conducting elections in the state have changed since the abrogation of Article 370, where we're talking about CCTV cameras at all polling booths, review of security of those standing for elections. All of that is at play, isn't it?
Well, as you said, the opportunities are that this is likely to be, and hopefully it will be a very free and fair elections. But at the same time, what we see is that a large number of separatist leaders are still in jail, and their sympathizers may be contesting the elections. And at the same time, the ruling dispensation will also be encouraging and supporting certain leaders there, whether or not they are going to be successful, because of late we have seen the militancy is on the rise, and recently it has been so much so that more than 70 to 80 casualties have taken place. At the same time, we have seen only today or yesterday mass transfers have taken place. That shows that the government probably doesn't have the confidence to win the election on the basis of the earlier officers. At the same time, only today they have also announced announced giving lands to the migrants. This is something which is just to lure the voters in the Jammu region. So the challenges are, of course, to ensure that the election is free and fair, but at the same time, we see that the militancy is at the rise, both in the Jammu region as well as in Kashmir region. How the government is going to still bring people to the voting centers, while we know that the people of Jammu and Kashmir have been pro-democracy, and in all the earlier elections, they have come in the mass. There are 50 to 60% voting in the assembly and parliamentary elections, and in the local elections we have seen 80 to 85% participation from them. So the challenges remain as elsewhere, but the major challenge to my mind is to test the BJP or the ruling party strategy to win the hearts and the minds of the people through some of the measures that they have taken. And the measures I have already mentioned to you: the abrogation of Jammu and Kashmir 370, at the same time delimitation, increasing the seats in Jammu region, and at the same time giving
Mr. Ansari, we've learned some lessons.
Reservations.
You talked about elections in the past, Mr. Ansari. We've learned some lessons from the elections that were conducted, general elections in the state as well, and that would come in very handy. Now, the CEC, the Election Commission, has said that the district magistrate is going to be the first responder to any fake news, any negative narratives. They have to act within an hour. He has indicated that no fake news should be allowed to go viral online. How sensitive is that as an issue, fake news, for the state elections this time as you see it?
You see, what I see is that in the last 10 years, the security grid has been tightened by the center. Even then, we see certain problems coming from somewhere. That is what worries me. That what else the government can do besides what they have done as far as the security grid is concerned, because the army, the BSF, and the CRPF, all these, and we have so many of the parliamentary forces, and the region is highly militarized. So what I see is that the challenges remain, but at the same time, what we see is that the people of Jammu and Kashmir, they participate in masses, coming out and electing the leaders. So the result will be very interesting to see. But people are definitely going to ask that whatever was promised at the time of abrogation of 370, that was that the peace will be restored, the development will take place, and at the same time, the militancy will be reduced to a substantial extent. What we see is not many of things that are happening, because as is we have seen elsewhere in the country, the inflation, unemployment, and other problems remain, and it is also there. Another question is, the Jammu and Kashmir has never been talking of the economic and development issue. That has remained a political issue, and the government has not been still talking to the political leaders there, because as you may recall, that the assembly was not dissolved, the alliance government was pulled down, and when the PDP and NC, they came together to form the government, immediately the assembly was dissolved. So that is what the people, especially in the last 30-35 years of the militancy, people are very aware, and the youth is very aware the manner in which the central government has been dealing with the state, and this is how they are going to respond. And for them, this is the time.
This is the time. Like the Chief Election Commissioner has also pointed out, he says that the time has come to give people of Jammu and Kashmir its own government through elections. The last assembly elections, we know, they took place in 2014. It's been 10 years since. It has been under central rule since 2018. So when you're assessing the mood of the electorate in participating in these elections, whether it's the nomadics, the Kashmiri Pandit migrants, how do you sense their willingness to participate in the assembly elections this time?
As I sense it, even the Kashmiri Pandits, they are the disappointed lot. While as far as the Kashmiri Pandits are concerned, they are pro-election. They would welcome these elections, and they will definitely participate in this. But what I say that their disappointment is as much as the disappointment of the other locals, because the government government has from time to time promised rehabilitation of the Kashmiri Pandits, but unfortunately this has not been happening. The UPA government has given opportunities for employment there and also for rehabilitation. Some funds were allocated, but what we see in the last 10 years, not many of the Kashmiri Pandits have gone there and they have not settled it. So I see the voices of the Kashmiri Pandits. They are also disappointed the manner in which the government has dealt with them. But as far as the elections are concerned, they are definitely going to participate in the election. They will bring their own leadership, the leadership which will raise their own concerns in the assembly.
Compared to Jammu and Kashmir's three-phased assembly elections, Mr. Ansari, for those 90 constituencies that Jammu and Kashmir has, Haryana is going to have just one phase for all of its 90 seats. Is that a story in itself, how Jammu and Kashmir's needs are so different from any of the other states when it comes to conducting assembly elections?
Because it has been alleged that the Jammu and Kashmir has had rarely free and fair elections. But when you talk of the phases, when it could be held in one phase, why it could not have happened in one phase? Because one day has also skipped, because the Supreme Court said that before 30th, very clearly that it should be held. Now the last phase of election is on the 1st October. So it could have happened there, but as you know, the electionary process are concerned. Why it could not be held at the same time? Why even there are other questions why Maharashtra has been left behind, because earlier Maharashtra election was also held along with Haryana. So that is an issue, and the Kashmiris do say that please hold elections as fairly as you do elsewhere in the country. And of course, our Prime Minister has been talking of one nation, one election. So these also phases could also be accordingly managed. This time, we know that we are not holding all other assembly elections or the national parliamentary elections. So therefore, the Election Commission cannot say that we do not have the enough security forces to manage, because this is going to be singularly Haryana as well as Jammu and Kashmir. Like Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir could also be held in one day, but
yes,
it is happening in 3 days. So.
Yes.
That is a question which do people raise and may raise it, because this time Election Commission is not burdened with holding all India elections of center and states. So it is only Haryana
yes,
and Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
Both the election could be held in one phase and one day.
Maharashtra and Jharkhand will have to wait, Mr. Ansari, at this point in time.
Been avoided.
Yes, yes. Meanwhile, these two states who also will have elections due, those certainly will have to wait. Such a pleasure having you on the show and getting your perspective on what is going to be an important election, especially for Jammu and Kashmir, considering that's happening for the first time in a decade, and especially also, like you pointed out, happening after the abrogation of Article 370. We'll be watching every nuance of this election, and we'll keep reconnecting with you. Thanks for joining us.